Welcome to the Writing 1 presentation on how to do works cited and references pages. This lesson will refer to chapters 46 and 47 and how to write anything, and the MLA and APA sections in a pocket-style manual. Here's information on what it means to document your sources, and we talk about both in-text citation. We did another presentation on that I encourage you to look at if you have not already. And then you're going to have, besides documenting your sources within your paper, you're also going to have a list at the end of the paper, and that's what this presentation focuses on a bit more. General term for that is bibliography, and the specific pages, what we call them and how we do them is going to depend on whether they're MLA or APA. And again, in the previous presentation on documenting sources in your papers, we've discussed MLA and APA and some of the differences there. So again, if you haven't looked at that, be sure to go back and watch that. Here are some specific page numbers and where to find the specific spots within our textbooks on how to do these things, again, depending on whether you're using MLA or APA. This example is going to show you some ways to find the information that you'll actually put into a citation listing in your bibliography. You can see they have a book example where you can see the title page and then inside the copyright page. And that'll basically provide all the information you would need if you're looking to make that works cited or references listing. This being MLA, they have it labeled for that. You can see where the author's name is, Brenda Wineapple, and then the title and the subtitle there. Something a lot of students don't get immediately is the need to put the city of publication and the publisher. And we can see down, that's on the title page down below, they have that it's in New York. A lot of books are published in New York or Boston or San Francisco, so that's going to be pretty common. And then you see the publisher's name is usually going to be right before that. In this case is Alfred A. Knopf, which is a pretty standard book publisher there. And then you're going to find in the copyright page, somewhere in that copyright page, it'll say copyright and then a year. Sometimes it's up near the top, sometimes it's more toward the middle, but you are able to find that. And then at the end of your listing, you're going to put the medium, which in this case would be print. If it's a website, it would be web. Sometimes you'll run into some other strange examples. But those are ways to find that information out of a book. So now here we are looking at that same example, and we can see how your citation listing will actually look here. So we see that the author there with the first name after the last name, so Wineapple, comma, Brenda, and then we have the name of the book with the title and the subtitle, and that's in italics. And then after the title you have number 3 there, the city or place of publication with a colon, and then that is followed by the actual publisher's name and then the year it was published, and then at the end is the medium, which is print. And you can see more examples in your book, especially the Hacker References book. You can find a lot more great examples there. And of course we have plenty in our How to Write Anything book as well. A very common situation that students run into is that they'll get a chapter or an article out of a larger book that's an anthology. And an anthology is a collection of various articles. Our books that we have here are considered anthologies, especially the How to Write Anything. That one has a lot of really great articles and essays in it that you can use for your papers. There are a lot of different topics in there, and you could definitely find a lot of different readings in there to use as a source. And when you would go to cite that source, you would need to cite it as a selection from an anthology. So let's look at how that's a little bit different than the book listing that we had, because it is a book, but it's just one little piece within the book with a different author than many of the other authors within the book. So it needs to reflect that. So we can see that the author of the selection goes first, and then the name of the chapter or the article is in quotation marks, and that would be number 2 there, guilty on both counts. Then the name of the book, Asian American Literature in Anthology, that goes in italics after the name of the article or the chapter. After that you have the editor's name, and that is followed by the place of publication, and then the publisher name, and there you can see it's NTC. Many of the publishers' names, they have abbreviated versions that will work in MLA format, and then a comma, and then the year of publication. Now with an anthology, you want to put the page numbers that that particular article or chapter is from. So those page numbers are going to go second to the last in your listing after the year, and before you would put your medium, which is print again. Here we've got an example from a journal, and this is something that you might run into if you ever find a journal in the library. Just a reminder that most of where you'll find journal articles is through EBSCOhost or Gales Engage, and those will actually do your citations for you. But in case you do get them from a journal from our library or from another nearby library, and you have free access to IUSB, you may be able to get into Purdue, Notre Dame, places like that to look in their libraries too. And they have a lot of great print journals that you have access to. And so you might use that. So here's an example from that. Again, you can take a look at that and apply it as needed. One thing that I want to point out is that you can find the title of the periodical, usually toward the front, of course, but you're also going to look for the volume and issue number of that journal. And that's usually going to be toward the bottom. The date or the year of publication, that might be more than just a year, obviously. Periodicals often come out several times a year, so you want to look for that. When you go then to actually write out the periodical citation listing, you're going to see here that the basic layout is similar to what we've seen before with the books. You've got your author name there. The author in this case is Ruzich Constance M. So you put there. Then you put your article name in quotation marks, and then you would put the journal name there, number 3, and that's like the books, that's actually italicized. And then that next number, 41.3, what that means is that's the volume and issue number for the journal. As you do citations from EBSCOhost and Gales Engage with your scholarly journal articles, go ahead and take a look at those so you can see how the layout is. And you'll see that there. After the volume and issue number, then they have the year, and then they have a colon and then the page numbers. Again, that's put in place so your reader can go find that article very quickly after reading about it in your paper. And then they have the print medium there, number 7. As you can see here, when you access an article from a database, whether it's a scholarly journal article or just a regular other type of periodical article, they do have all the information you need listed there. As you know, as I've mentioned several times now, EBSCOhost and Gales Engage will actually do all of this for you for listing, but it's good to know where this information is located in case you need to change it, or you just decide you really want to learn how to do this for yourself. So you can see that information here. And here's the listing for the example that we just saw from the article database. Again, this is going to be very similar to what we saw before with an article from a scholarly journal. But the one thing I want you to see is number 7 there is actually the name of the database. You need to make sure that that is in there. And then the medium there, number 8, it's not print because you didn't go find the print journal and use it. This is actually from the web. So you want to make sure you reflect that. And then at the very end, number 9, that's the date you access the source. So there are some changes and some differences depending on even how you access the same article. We're going to take a really close look at this example because this is an example of something that many students will find them really needing to know, is how to take a work on a website, an article or something like that, and take it and decide how to do the citation listing from that. And many students get very confused and very frustrated because they haven't really learned how to do this. And again, this isn't about memorizing a certain way of doing things. This is about knowing where to access the information you need. But it is helpful to know what type of information you should be looking for. So let's look at this. First of all, we're looking for the author. So let's see if we can find the author there. And number 1 on there, we don't always see an author. And if you're looking at this example, well, I'm not sure if we can find that. You know, look around and see what you can see. You may have to squint at it a little bit. But sometimes it can be really hard to find an author. So we have to see if we find an author in the first place. Then we look and find the title. Then we're going to look for the title of the website. And this one's a little tricky for some students because you can usually find the title of the article, in this case, Overview of American Whaling, but then looking for the title of the website, a lot of students don't realize they need to do that. In this case, it's New Bedford Whaling Museum. And the sponsor of the website, number 4, well, we're not entirely sure what that is. Now, if we dig a little bit, we can find that down at the very, very bottom, the New Bedford Whaling Museum. And it's also the Old Dartmouth Historical Society we can see down there too. So we see that the title of the website is also the same as part of the sponsor of the website, but you do need to have both pieces of information. Then number 5, look for the update date. You always want to look for that. Sometimes they don't have it, in which case you would use an N and a D in your listing if you can't find an update date. But always look for that. And down below you see copyright 2009, there where it says number 5. And then number 6, the medium. Of course, that's going to be web because you're finding this on the web, on the internet. And then number 7, you want to make sure that you know what date you access the source. Continuing that same example then, we can see how our writer chose to work with this. Well, number 1, author of short work. We don't really see that it had a specific author, so we're not going to put anything down for that. We're going to start with number 2, which is our title of our short work. Now, some people would say that you should, as the author, you might say, well, it was a corporate author, so maybe you would want to put that in there, but even that, you're not really sure what that is, so you can just skip that part and start with number 2, the title of the short work. In this case, Overview of American Whaling. And number 3, the title of the website. Well, we saw that at the very top, so we're going to put that down. And then number 4, the sponsor of the website. So what company or organization actually sponsors the website? Well, it's the Old Dartmouth Historical Society. We can see we can use some shorter ways of putting things, HIST instead of historical, and SOC instead of society. And then, of course, that's / New Bedford Whaling Museum as part of the name of the sponsor. And then after that, we have a comma 2009. That's the update date. And if we can't find that, we would put N and D, but they found it here, so they used it. Then number 6, the medium is the web, as we said. And then number 7, the date you access the source. You always want to put that at the end and make sure that you have the day first, so 27, and then the month, and then the year. That's a way of formatting that makes it a little easier for researchers. Again, you can find a lot more information about all the different variables in your handbook in the writer's reference, and there will be lots and lots of different variables. I'm always happy to help you with this too, but it's good for you to work with this on your own and kind of figure it out on your own before bringing it to me or getting some help from the writing lab. Here we're looking at citation for a book in APA style. So we're switching gears and looking at the information we might need to find from there. So we can look here and we see the title page and the copyright page and the information we can find from there. Of course, the author is usually at the top. The year of publication is going to be on the inside page. Title and subtitle are on the title page. Obviously, that's why it's called a title page, as you know. And the place of publication is down at the below on the title page, as well as the publisher. And as we look at the actual listing now, we can see that it starts off the same as MLA in that we have our author name first. But if you look at that very closely, Friedman is his last name, but then they just have the initials, TL. Whereas in MLA they would say Thomas, in APA they will just have TL. They'll have their initials. Then we have the year of publication right after that, right after the author. And remember, APA is interested very much in when something was published. They want current research. They want to know when something was researched right away. And so they're going to put that date of publication or year of publication right after the author name because it's very important to them. They're putting that in parentheses. Then after that we get the title and then the publisher, the place of publication, and then the publisher itself. So a lot of the same information that we're used to finding from MLA, but in a slightly different order. And again, you can find all the different variables for APA in your writer's reference book. Looking now at the example of an article in a journal or a magazine, what information we're going to get from APA. Again, looking for the author, seeing if we can find that. Usually that's going to be on the front page. The year of publication for the journal or the complete date for the magazine. We're going to find that in the contents page. Usually both a magazine or a scholarly journal is going to have that right in the one of the first few pages will be the contents page, and you're going to find it there. Again, they're all a little different. You may have to dig for it, but you'll find it. Then number 3, you're looking for the title of the article, and 4, the name of the journal or the magazine. Pretty standard. Volume number and issue number if it's required. There can be some changes in that, but I would say for the most part just try to find that, and better to be safe than sorry. And then the page numbers for the articles you're going to find down there too. And you're going to find those obviously within the article themselves, but don't forget to copy those down. Then looking at the actual citation itself, we can see very similar to the book one we looked at for the APA. We can see the author's last name and then first initial, number 1 down there, then number 2, again, the year of publication. And note that we don't get the full complete date for the magazine there, just the year. So again, that sometimes there are some variations that you want to pay attention to. I would think it'd be good to have the full date in there, but you can see that not everybody asked for that. Then you can see that the article name there, the article name, whereas in MLA it would be in quotation marks, they don't have that in APA. You don't put that in quotation marks. You just put the article name right there. That's number 3 there. And then for the journal article, or the journal name itself is in italics. And then what we have after that is the volume number and the issue number. They're set up slightly differently, with the volume number, volume 8, and then issue number 4. And that'll help your readers find that. And then the page numbers finally after that, 53 through 58, number 6 there. When you find your journal article on the database, though, there are a couple of extra things that you're going to look for, just like with MLA, but a couple of things to be on the lookout for. You can see kind of the standard things that we've looked at down the line here. I'm not going to repeat all of those. But down number 7, you're going to look for the digital object identifier. And that is a special number that will help with researchers. They will be able to punch that number in there and find it. And again, that's just kind of a standard thing that is common with APA that MLA doesn't bother with. Likewise, at number 8, you're going to want the URL for the journal's homepage if you can't find that DOI. And you may not always be able to find the DOI in there. So look for that DOI down there and copy and paste that in. And if you can't find that, then you'll use the URL for the journal's homepage. In the citation listing then, that would be on your APA references page, you'll see, again, similar to what we saw before as far as names there. We see in this example that they have 3 authors, and we see how they handle that there with the first author's name, initials, second author's last name, initials, and then the ampersand for and then the last name and first initial there, followed by the year, number 2. And again, we see the article name itself is not in quotation marks, it's just there. We see Journal of Macro Marketing is the name of the periodical, and then 5, volume number, and then we didn't have the issue number in there. They're not going to require that. And then the pages, and then at the end we see number 7, the DOI, and they copied and pasted that right there so that their reader can quickly pull up that article using that number. So again, the Gale, Cengage, or EBSCOhost will actually do all of this for you, but it's helpful to know what the elements are. When we look at a website source, then we are going to be looking for some of the same things we would look for in other listings or in MLA listings. But again, you'll see some slight differences here. So of course you're going to look for your author. In this case, they're identifying the author as the Minnesota Department of Health. That's a corporate author, so they're going to put that in there. 2, they're going to find the date of publication. In this case, we're kind of lucky. It's right up top. You can see there's published in January 2010, they tell us. And number 3, you're actually going to be looking at a title of a section. They're giving us this example because this does happen with some types of research, is that you'll be using just as part of a website or a document on a website, so they wanted to give us an example with that. So they're giving us the title of that section. that's actually on a PDF format document. And then after the title of the section, we have the title of the document, which is number 4, which is the Minnesota Health Statistics Annual Summary. And then we're going to have the URL for that particular section there. So some of you really won't run into this as much, but this still gives us a good example for how to deal with a website in APA format. Along with this example then, we're seeing that when we actually pull the document up from the website, we can find the URL there right at the top of the page. They just want us to see that. So when we actually look at the listing itself, we can see that they've used as their author their number 1. Again, it's a corporate author, the Minnesota Department of Health. And then after that, as is standard for APA, we have the date, and they actually have January after 2010, so take note of that order. Then they have number 3, the title of the section, which is part of their larger overall website. They're going to identify which section of the website that is, if it's applicable. And then they will say 4, the title of the document. So the section is part of the document, just to make that clear. So they're not just saying it's on this larger website, they're saying it's just a part of this larger website. So 3 is the title of the section within the larger number 4. And then they have at the end, retrieved from, and that's some wording that we're not used to if we're doing MLA. So in APA, they want that retrieved from, and then you'll have the actual URL where you got that. So again, when you're using APA format to do a citation for anything on the web, you're going to want that retrieved from and then where you got it from. Notice that, unlike MLA, they are not as concerned about when you accessed it, at least not with this one. A key concept here to keep in mind is that the most important skill in citing sources is not memorization. And we just ran through a whole bunch of examples because I wanted you to be able to see how to identify those different elements, but you don't need to memorize how to do a citation. That's way too time consuming. I don't have the kind of memory for that. I'm sure you don't. So we just need to know that what matters most is your ability to use our handbook, our writer's reference book, and find out how to document a particular source. Thanks for watching this presentation. I know we got into a lot of details. Hopefully that was helpful, and hopefully you can use this as a resource as you encounter issues documenting your sources throughout the course. I also recommend you look at the other presentations in this unit if you have not yet so far, and we do have a practice activity on documenting sources. And of course, the most important part is using this knowledge in your developing document skills as you work through the various papers in this course and your other courses here at Ancilla College. Have a great day.